if you're seeing being an introvert as a negative thing, or maybe that it's holding you back in your career, it's not. And I want to tell you that you can be successful as an introvert and get into any role that you want to. It's more so about the strategy you use than your personality or who you are. Welcome to Your Worthy Career, a podcast for women in pharma and biotech with me, Melissa Lawrence. I am a certified career and leadership coach with a master's in organizational psychology who has worked in talent and learning development in biotech to large pharma, from non-clinical to commercial. I help women in pharma and biotech create a career worthy of them. Whether you want to get clear on what you want, get a new job, get promoted, or be effective as a leader at any level, this is the place for you. Every week, you will get practical career strategies and mindset shifts to help you overcome the problems you experience at work so you can reach your goals feeling better than ever. Your up level begins now. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I hope you're having an amazing week. And today I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic. I actually can't believe that I haven't talked about this yet. You'd think over 200 episodes in, I wouldn't keep coming up with new topics, but I do. And this is something that actually has come up in my group Beyond the Ceiling, even with my one-on-one clients lately. So I thought this would be a great time to dig into it. And we're going to talk about being successful, growing your career, and excelling as an introvert in industry. And this applies to whether you identify as an introvert or if you want to just better understand the strengths of the introverts that you work with. Now, I work with a lot of women who identify as introverts and can struggle with all of the loud voices around them. Like, I could be one of those voices sometimes. And you want to be thoughtful about your responses, and it can be overwhelming to have such loud and constant talk going on around you. I have a really close friend of mine who is an introvert, and she knits and reads and just wants alone time. And she loves me. I know she does. But after like a couple of hours, she's like, I need to sit alone for a little while. And she's like that around everyone because she just is so introverted, and she gets energy from being alone, not from being around kind of constant stimulation and other people. And it can kind of feel sometimes in industry that the louder the voice, the higher the rank. And you might work in companies with speak-up cultures and social activities, and it can feel like your worst nightmare. Like, you want to just be able to do your work and be brilliant in your technical expertise. Do you really need to socialize and be loud and talk just to hear your voice, right? I will have clients tell me that, like, I hate when people seem like they're talking just to hear themselves talk out loud, just to hear their voice, which is ironic that I'm saying this to you while I'm recording a podcast for you where I am literally just talking out loud and talking to you. So I worked in pharma and biotech companies for almost 15 years, and I know the personalities, and although I'm a bit more extroverted, I'm not the first to speak up in meetings. I do like to think through my responses in group settings. So everyone's a little bit nuanced. They might identify as an introvert or extrovert, but have little quirks or little preferences that maybe don't fit generically within that definition, and that's okay. I remember when I worked at a biotech company, we had this executive leader of quality who was very soft-spoken. She was introverted. She told everyone that she was introverted, and she didn't like to really spend a lot of time in large group settings. Like, she wanted those in small doses, but she was a very strong executive leader. And she is someone that when she did speak up, people listened. And she even talked about how her relationship with her manager, she kind of communicated to him how she best liked to work, and that she isn't going to be the person that's going to be interjecting and wanting to kind of fill up space or talk through their ideas in meetings. And so because they had that open dialogue, her manager knew to kind of call on her and ask her if she had anything to add so that she could still contribute but didn't feel like she had to be the one interjecting. So that's just a little side note also about the importance of just talking about your preferences for communication with your management and other stakeholders. And I want to reassure you that if you're seeing being an introvert as a negative thing, or maybe that it's holding you back in your career, it's not. And I want to tell you that you can be successful as an introvert and get into any role that you want to. It's more so about the strategy you use than your personality or who you are. Now, today I'm going to give you 3 specific ways that you can succeed to kind of amplify the strengths that you have as a leader in your career, as an introvert. And that isn't going to put you too far outside of your comfort zone. Because guess what? Quiet leadership, so to speak. I don't know if you've heard this term before, quiet leadership. It's a term that can be used to talk about leaders who aren't extroverted, that aren't the more dominant voice in the room. It is a strength. And actually, in the pharma biotech space, with its focus on technical complexity and problem solving and scientific rigor, it's actually really well suited for introverted leaders. So before we get into these kind of 3 different steps I want to share with you, let me just further emphasize this by giving you some actual studies and some data to think about. So first, a report from the Center for Creative Leadership found that introverted leaders tend to score higher in empathy and emotional intelligence compared to their extroverted peers. A whopping 82% of introverted leaders showed greater sensitivity to their team's needs, fostering better relationships and higher team loyalty. So think about it. In pharma and biotech, where patient outcomes and collaborative team efforts are important to get the best medicines to patients in need, empathy allows you to lead with compassion and strengthen team dynamics, getting medicines to patients more quickly. Next, a study published in the Journal of Psychological Science found that introverts tend to outperform extroverts in tasks that require innovation and creativity. The study concluded that introverts' ability to focus deeply without distraction allows them to actually produce more innovative ideas and solutions. How cool is that? So given that innovation is really at the heart of pharma and biotech and of science, introverted leaders can excel in kind of driving some of those groundbreaking ideas and solutions, particularly if you work in the research and development group. So that's pretty amazing. Now, let me just share one more. There was a study done in 2014 by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, and it revealed that introverts excel at written communication and often take the time to craft thoughtful, concise messages. Over 70% of introverts in leadership positions reported feeling more confident, communicating through written reports and recommendations. How cool is that? Now, this plays directly into the pharma biotech world where accurate, well-communicated data, think about regulatory submissions, protocols, clinical trial reports, is so critical. Introverted leaders can lean into this strength of written communication to lead projects and influence stakeholders. So, like I said, I work with a lot of introverts, and one of the things that we work on is effective communication. And it's rarely written communication. It's more how to understand, influence, and communicate effectively out loud at varying levels and in different situations where it's managing up with your boss, presenting yourself in an interview, dealing with challenging personalities, and things like that. And if you look for the evidence, it's there. These 3 different studies and statistics that I shared with you, I found them by doing a little bit of research online. So if you want to find the evidence that being an introvert is actually a strength, it's actually a superpower that you can have as a leader, it is there. Because strength isn't measured by volume. Let me say that again. Your strength is not measured by the volume. Now, let's talk about the 3 steps that you can take to use your quiet leadership or introverted tendencies to your advantage so you can succeed in your career. Step 1 is to embrace and leverage your strengths. Now, as these studies showed, and just to make crystal clear, there are 3 specific strengths of being an introvert in industry. 1 is deep thinking and strategic insight. Introverts are often strong at thoughtful, analytical thinking, which is crucial in data-driven industries like ours. Leaders who are reflective can assess risks, foresee challenges, and offer deep insights, which is essential for strategic decision-making. Also, active listening is probably one of your superpowers. Unlike extroverted leaders who can dominate conversations, Introverts like you can excel at listening and understanding others. This allows you to lead teams more effectively because you're able to tune into team members' needs, foster trust, and create inclusive environments where diverse ideas can grow and thrive. Finally, you can lead with empathy. Introverted leaders often have strong emotional intelligence and empathy, which is critical in pharma, where the end goal is to improve patients' lives. Leading with empathy can result in stronger, more loyal teams and teams that are more motivated to do their best work. So take a moment and think about how analytical thinking, listening, and empathy show up in the way that you work right now. How does it play into the approaches that you take, how you solve problems? How does it impact your leadership style? If you're listening in and you're not an introvert or you don't identify that way, then you can think about your introverted colleagues and how these strengths that they have might be different than yours and how you could leverage them, how you could work better with them, how you could look or see a different perspective and how they might lead that is different from you, but just as effective. So let's talk about step 2. Step 2 is to build influence without being the loudest voice, right? Which is what you want. You want to be influential, you want to be a standout leader, but you don't want to be the loudest person in the room. And like I said, volume isn't the strength, the strategy is. So let's talk about the power of one-on-one connections. Introverts tend to build stronger, deeper relationships in smaller groups or one-on-one settings. And I think this is great. Here's why. You build deeper, more meaningful connections and allies one-on-one. Regardless of your introverted or extroverted style, you're more likely to have more strategically advantageous relationships when you focus on one-on-one connections, and that's something that you're more comfortable doing. So that's great. Next is thoughtful communication. Instead of speaking for the sake of just being heard, introverted leaders can make a bigger impact by contributing thoughtful, well-researched ideas at the right moments. This is a strength you have. This can give your words more weight in meetings or during decision-making processes. Like the executive leader that I shared earlier, because she wasn't always talking, when she did, people were more likely to listen. When she spoke, there was a different level of substance there. Now, it doesn't mean that you should overthink every word. I know this can be an issue for many of my clients, so I just want to say that there is a balance between overthinking or being doubtful of your opinions and expertise, and then just being thoughtful about how you share them. Next is using written communication effectively. So in the pharma industry, documentation is critical. It's almost painfully critical, right? I have taken some of the best documentation practices from industry and I've actually incorporated them into my own business, like SOPs. I have SOPs for how to do virtually everything on the operations side. But I'll let you know that I don't practice GDP. I am happy to be able to date things however I want and chicken scratch my notes and have 14 notebooks if I so choose. It's freedom for me after all of those years. So, like I shared earlier, introverts often excel at written communication. So they can use this strength to lead more effectively by providing clear, thoughtful reports, recommendations, emails that are going to actually drive decisions forward. So sometimes the more dominant personality feels like they need to be more dominant, they need to be more direct, because otherwise things will get pushed to the side, but that is not always true. The kind of more quiet leader that is more introverted can move things along just as effectively using a different approach. So again, it's not that one personality is better than the other, it's that there's strategies you can use to be the most effective no matter what your personality is. So instead of going back and forth and hearing people talk their thoughts out loud without thinking them through first, you're skilled at carefully crafting the best written messages to get a positive outcome. Now, some tips you can use to amplify these strengths would be to follow up after meetings with an email of what you understand your action items to be. If you know you have an idea that you want to share in a meeting, you could reach out to the organizer and let them know ahead of time so you have time built into the agenda and a runway to share what you want to say rather than having to insert yourself if you're not comfortable with that. So if you don't want to have to interject yourself or ask in front of everyone for time to talk about a specific topic, you can reach out to the organizer ahead of time. That's a great strategy for that. Now let's get to step 3, creating a leadership style that works for you. One of the exercises I do with my clients is to create their unique leadership philosophy. We do this at any level so that you can identify your strengths, your values, and positions as a leader and lead with authenticity in a way that feels like you and allows you to stand out. I did a podcast episode on leadership philosophies. If you're interested in that topic and want to check it out, we can link to that in the show notes. You can create a leadership style now that works for you by leading by example and showing people with your behavior the type of leader that you are. You don't have to be the most vocal or loud. So some ways that you can do this, or that introverts' tendencies can be a strength for leadership, is to delegate and empower others. You're more likely, and you may find it easier to delegate and empower other people because of your tendency to be more empathetic, to be a good listener, and to understand people's strengths. What's important, though, is that you set boundaries for recharge. So as a leader, and I'm talking to you as a leader regardless of your title, it's important for introverts to build in boundaries and downtime to recharge, just like my friend that I mentioned in the beginning. Being introverted doesn't mean that you don't like people. It just means you don't get a lot of energy. You don't fill that energy tank from being around people and talking about your thoughts out loud. Leadership or highly visible roles, especially in industries like pharma where the stakes are high, they can be draining for you sometimes. Something you can do is to schedule quiet time for you to go for a walk or spend time alone. Schedule buffer time between meetings so you aren't back to back when you can have that space in your schedule for downtime. So let's recap the 3 steps I shared with you today. Embrace your strengths, build influence using your strengths, and create and leverage a leadership style that fits you. Another thing to add here is that there isn't a best style for any particular role. There are strengths that introverts have to offer, which I highlighted just some of those today, and there are also strengths that extroverts offer. What's important to take away is that you can be successful as you are. You don't need to be someone you're not to get to the levels of leadership that you want to or that is in your development plan. Instead of focusing on styles and personality traits, it's more effective to focus on skills and strategy. What skills could you build that will help you use these 3 steps and amplify your strengths as a leader? Where might you use your style as a crutch to stay small or even prevent growth because of that fear of change? Or maybe you're being stuck in your style. And where instead could you change your approach or strategy to be more effective? Now, I hope this episode gave you a lot of good insight on how you can succeed as an introvert, as well as some confidence and reassurance that the way you are is not a weakness, but instead a powerful strength that is a great fit for the pharma biotech industry, no matter how loud the other voices might be. That is all for this week's episode. Have an amazing week. Hey, the episode is over. I want to let you in on a secret. There are 4 hidden ways you can use to advance your career as a woman in pharma or biotech that your boss or HR doesn't want you to know about. These are strategies that are proven to work even after you've been told no. Save yourself so much time and advance your career on your terms by downloading the strategies at my website, yourworthycareer.com/hidden. They're completely free. Go get them now.